He spills wine on the doorstep every day. He must then block all the exits and not dare to snore when he sleeps, because when night falls, monsters appear outside. The only way to stay out of the monster's reach is to remain vigilant. 90% of the world's population is dead. 9% are infected with a virus that turns them into monsters, who come out at night to feed. Robert is immune to the virus and survives with his dog. Fortunately, the monsters are afraid of sunlight and only come out in the dark. This allows Robert to search for supplies in the city during the day. He could run around the house during the day without fear of the monsters. Robert sometimes plays golf on the aircraft carrier when he wants to relax, but he still hasn't given up the search for an antidote to the virus. Robert has turned his basement into a research laboratory to better study the antidote. He experiments daily with his own serum on mice infected with the virus. That day, he came to the lab to check the mice as usual, but Robert noticed that one of the mice had become docile after the injection of his serum. Perhaps his serum was having an effect on the mice. This incident made Robert realize that his serum was effective against the virus. Robert went to a cellar to verify this suspicion. He took a tube of blood from his arm and sprayed it on the door. A monster rushed in. Smelling the blood, the monster fell into a trap and Robert caught it. Robert was going to experiment on this monster to study the antidote, but the monster was the wife of the chief monster, and the chief monster is looking for his wife. In this apocalyptic world, man has captured a monster to study the antidote, but when Robert injects the creature with his serum, he finds it has no effect. On the contrary, the monster becomes even more violent. Robert realizes that it's not working, so he takes his dog for a walk, but the monster has already found Robert. Indeed, the monster Robert brought back was the wife of the chief monster. Robert was walking his dog when he noticed a man on the side of the road. He shouted to find out what was going on, but the man didn't answer. Robert got angry and shot the man with his rifle. When he gets closer, he realizes it's a dummy. By the time he realizes something is wrong, it's too late. Robert is instantly caught in the monster's trap, hits his head on the ground, and remains suspended in midair. When he woke up, it was dark. To save himself, Robert hurriedly cut the rope with his pocket knife. Unfortunately, he stabbed himself in the thigh as he fell. Although he's now injured, he needs to get out of here first. However, before Robert could move his body, the dog next to him realized that something was wrong. It turns out that the monster has been waiting here for a long time. The monster has released 3 mutant dogs to teach Robert a lesson. Robert looks at the ferocious mutant dog and hurriedly pulls out his pistol, ready to shoot, but the mutant dog's speed is too fast. Fortunately, Bull's dog rushes in at the critical moment. Robert kills 3 mutant dogs and realizes that his dog is dying. To prevent the dog from mutating, he brought him back to the lab with pain in his body. Robert then injected the dog with a serum, but the dog's body quickly mutated and attacked Robert. Finally, Robert held back his tears and ended the life of his dog, who had been with him for 3 years. Saddened, Robert went out to bury his dog before returning home. The sky was already dark. A group of monsters spotted Robert's car and rushed at him. Because of the large number of monsters, Robert's car was quickly overturned by the monsters. At the critical moment, a violet light appeared. When Robert awoke, he found himself rescued by a mother and son. When the world ended, 3 survivors took refuge in their house, but a horde of monsters soon attacked them in a frenzy. It turns out that this man had taken the wife of the monsters' leader. The monsters were all summoned by the chief. Robert sees the monsters and immediately turns on the spotlight in an attempt to disrupt the monsters' vision. But the monsters were smart enough to break the spotlight. Robert had no choice but to activate the bombs he had installed. In a flurry of explosions, the monsters outside were wiped out. Robert thought the crisis was over and was about to go upstairs to check on the situation. Suddenly, a monster rushed at Robert and began biting him. At the critical moment, Robert detonated the gas tank in the house and the monster fled. Robert thought the crisis was over, but the monsters launched a second attack. The monster leader roared, and all the monsters headed for Robert's house. Seeing this, Robert had to hide in the cellar with mother and son. That's when he realized that the monster's wife seemed to be getting better. While he was puzzled, a group of monsters suddenly rushed in. Robert had to desperately explain to the monster leader that he wasn't trying to hurt them, but to save them. But the monster leader drew a strange pattern on the window. It was then that Robert realized that the monster he had captured was the chief's wife. Knowing that the monster was just trying to free his wife, Robert had Anna open the door. Then he slowly pushed the monster's wife out. Seeing that his wife was safe, the monster leader didn't continue his attack and left. Finally, the 3 survivors drove off in search of other survivors. They should soon find a way to break the virus. This film shows us that monsters aren't scary. They're just victims of the virus. We'd be worried if our companions were being experimented on, and we'd try to save them.